The Writer's Dream. This is a show where authors can talk about how they write their books, how they publish their books, and how they market their books. You can find us on Facebook. The name of the Facebook page, guess what, is The Writer's Dream. If you want to be on the show, you can message me through that Facebook page. We also air here at ltveh.org. Just look, I believe it's under videos, and you will find the show. Just scroll down, find the show, and you can see any of the shows that they have archived. It's also available on Channel 20 that airs between East Hampton and Montauk, and they air it 3 times a week. Also available on Channel 20 west of East Hampton. That's all of Long Island. Channel 20, Friday at 3 o'clock, we air. I'm on YouTube. On YouTube, you have to search my name, Linda Maria Frank, and then just click on the picture and you'll get all the videos. And there are about 150 different authors, all local. So if you're interested in reading, writing, producing a book, there's a lot of advice on there, and I strongly suggest that you engage in that. Today's guest is Joel Reitman, and Joel Reitman is a former teacher and also a former journalist, and he has now turned full-time author. So, Joel, tell us about how you morphed from teacher. I'm interested because I was a teacher too. How you morphed into an author.
Well, not really a full-time author. Writing is, as you know, is a very difficult process, and publishing can be even, and promoting can be even more
Marketing
arduous.
Sahara.
Very hard, very hard. Anyway, I started out as a special education teacher for many years, and just before retirement, I sort of got cozy with the local newspaper, a weekly, the Smithtown Messenger, and I was doing sports photography and writing a little blurb underneath so the parents would buy the newspaper and promote the newspaper that way. And upon retirement, they asked if I wanted to be a journalist. So I continued the sports photography. I did a little fly fishing article, and then slowly I became more and more of a journalist covering the things that go on in Smithtown, the little events, the traffic, the weather, the politics, and the politics we did often went to Suffolk County politics. And eventually I did an article on pollution. Pollution was pretty rampant at Brookhaven Lab, and I became involved and interested in covering that and writing about that. Pollution up in Nissaquag, which is still going on. And I sort of kept that in the back of my mind. Upon moving, we moved to Southold, and I got a job with the Traveler Watchman. Became a journalist covering the township of Riverhead and Calverton, and the airport that Grumman is there, and there is pollution there. And I keep this all in the back of my mind while I'm trying to write creatively, and I just couldn't. I would try for like a page or a half a page. Nothing was coming out. It was strictly trade journalism and just the facts, sort of.
So different. It's so different.
So very different. My wife saw a thing in the recreation department. They were doing a memoirs class, and I didn't really want to disclose my whole inner self to memoirs, so I decided to do.
Why?
Decided to make a little creative memoirs, and that sort of led me to maybe more of a creative writer. And keeping that pollution in the back of my mind eventually evolved into a book which would be my second book. The first book was the one right here, B is for dog, D is for dog, B is for Brooklyn, which is nostalgia, which is basically memoirs, creatively though. What happened in Brooklyn, even though I left Brooklyn when I was 10, moving to LA, but
People never leave Brooklyn.
Never leave Brooklyn.
They never leave Brooklyn.
So that's the first book, and I ended up paying a lot of money to have that book published. I learned my lesson the hard way, that one, and I could buy the book back if I bought 25 books at a time at almost list price. So when I finally did this book on pollution and hidden secrets of like Flight 800 or whatever went on, I decided I would find another way to promote my book and get it published. I didn't realize the set of skills that I would need in order to do this. before marketing, you have to get, before you even get there, you have to get the book into a PDF format, which takes computer skills. You have to be able to upload it into a file. Amazon has a great website, Kindle Publishing,
KDP,
KDP.
That's
It's
how I do my
100%
books.
free. You can buy the books back for just a fraction of the cost, but you need to have some skills, a set of skills, and be able to lay out a book, which I could do. You also need a cover, and in the first book, they supplied the cover. The second book, I found various websites that have covers for sale, reasonably $40, $50, $80 a pop, and that's where I got the cover for the second book. And that book is basically a canvassing or a story wrapping
this one, right?
around the various sites that would have some kind of a radar facility in order to justify the downing of Flight 800 by civilian activities, in my mind, and my take on it, my spin.
Yes.
So I ramble around Camp Hero out in Montauk
Mhm.
and down around the caves and the tunnels. And then I ramble around sort of East Hampton Airport also, and the harbor in Greenport, Plum Island, where I sort of realized what Lyme disease was about and where it came from. And of course, Brookhaven Lab, which has several reactors that are now defunct and polluted. Putting them all together, the protagonist, which happens to be a writer, and his friend happened to be a detective, they end up in the tunnels of Camp Hero.
You're talking about What Lies Below,
What
your
Lies
latest.
Below, yeah.
Let's explain that to the audience. What Lies Below is the novel that you wrote that we're really gonna talk about.
Right.
Your other two books are,
Yeah, well, before we get back to
endeavors,
that,
but this is your first fiction book.
the last book, Exploring Long
Oh,
Island,
that's
started
the last
out,
one.
I was doing real estate on the side also. And I would do a little tri-fold brochure of farms and hand it out to clients on my desk. I said, that's pretty interesting, and it went pretty quick, so let me do one on wineries. Then I said, wait a minute, this is pretty good. Let me do a book on all of them. And that was the first edition of Exploring Long Island.
Okay.
This is the second edition as of 2023, basically a listing of every place you could go. And the cover was done by my niece, so I didn't have to pay a whole lot of money for it, and I got a nice cover.
So basically, you went from journalism to nonfiction to fiction.
Yeah, basically. Well,
And it is a process. It's definitely a
Yeah.
process.
I mean, I have another book in mind, which would again be like a conspiracy thing, having to do with a submarine and submarine base in New Suffolk, and a B-24 plane that crashed in Laurel, New York. So that's in the back of my mind. I'm working on that,
Okay.
which would be
But let's talk about
What Lies Below. What Lies Below is the protagonist is a journalist who gets into a mess in writing in Long Beach, California, where he lives, and has to sort of get out of there. And he has a friend who lives in Long Island. His friend is Detective Green, and so he comes back to Long Island, and without a job. But Detective Green realizes that there's a murder someplace going on. I'm not going to disclose where, and he needs an investigative reporter to help him out. And the two buddies work together on this story, which is what Lies Below is all about.
Okay, so, and you took all this research that you actually had done as a journalist about the pollution on Long Island, that none of us like to think about. My house is in the crosshairs of the Bethpage plume, so.
Right.
Yeah, so, and we wonder why so many people have cancer on Long Island, but yeah, so, that's an important message, actually, I think. So, but this is basically the pollution underneath Montauk.
No, it's basically the pollution underneath Brookhaven Lab.
Oh, all right,
That's really where
I
it
have a
all
cousin-
began. Where it all began.
okay.
Right, and I noticed it because one day when I was driving around, there were these Suffolk County water trucks on William Floyd Parkway, and I didn't know what that was about. And I realized that finally found out they're putting in city water or safer water into the homes in North Brookhaven, south of the lab.
Yeah, because it was a plume
The
again.
plume was
right?
running under the expressway.
Yeah, my cousin worked at Brookhaven. He is a scientist. He worked there for a while. My parents lived in Leisure Village, which is down the street from
Correct.
Brookhaven. I visited there many times. It's
Brookhaven
yeah,
Lab.
yeah. Well, even when the reactor was running, I was there.
Well, there were 3 reactors at one
Yeah.
time.
Well,
there's-
this was I forget what it was called. The something beam reactor.
Yeah, but the headwaters of the
But,
Peconic River are also in there also too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then there's Shoreham, the nuclear
Well,
reactor that
Shoreham
never
never
was.
really polluted. Shoreham's another.
Because it never was.
Never really ran, but was definitely should never have run. It was erected in the daytime and dismantled in the evening by various people. But yeah, that's
Yeah, when they were proposing and starting to build that, I was teaching general science, and I gave my class an assignment that was a simulation game. And the idea was that they were going to build a nuclear reactor in our community. And so what the kids had to do was they had to role play. We had journalists, we had the town supervisor, we had teachers, we had concerned parents, we had scientists, and they all played a role, and we had this town meeting, and everybody gave their idea of whether it was safe or not to have this in the neighborhood. And at the time, I was all for nuclear energy, okay? And through the research that the kids did, it was so good that they actually changed my mind, and I said, no, this is not a good idea. And of course, what killed that reactor was the people who went to Albany and protested, because every nuclear reactor has to have an evacuation route.
Right.
How do you get off Long Island?
right.
The
That was the problem,
expressway.
yeah. It's probably was going to be a safe reactor technology. It's just going to be run rather poorly and without.
Well, they
much
said
thought.
even the building was
Right.
very poor. So, the construction.
It's still there. The building
I
is still
know,
there. You can
there's
still
a
see
restaurant near there that I really like.
it.
You
La
can go-
Plague.
Yeah, La Plage.
La Plage, yeah.
La Plage, yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you can go down the road. My daughter lives in Wading River, so you can go down and take a look at the reactor once in a while, yeah.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the midst of a beautiful marsh.
It's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
And
beautiful.
the area around Brookhaven Lab is also very pretty too.
Oh, yeah.
All it's pine barren, a lot of wildlife in there, and they
Mhm.
polluted a lot of it.
Yeah,
They threw a lot of the pollutants from the reactors into the forest, into the woods, into the pine barren.
yeah, well, I live near Republic
Mhm.
Airport, which was Republic, of course, Aviation
Right.
back in the 50s and the
Right.
40s and whatnot, and also not too far from Grumman, and all of those places polluted terribly. I mean, the stuff that they were using is just,
Right.
I mean, probably glows in the dark, but but that was then.
Yeah.
This is
Well, they found
now.
about the pollution at Brookhaven Lab through the deer. The people were
Yeah.
hunting deer. And
That's in your book, yeah.
yeah, it's in there, and they would people get sick and they didn't know why they're getting sick. So that's how they found out about it. The deer were actually crossing back and forth across the parkway onto private land, and that rather than hunting on the lab, and that's how they found out about it. Basically.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff. So what happens in the book?
Well, they end up running around trying to figure this out, and they end up in Camp Hero because Camp Hero was the site of um, some of Tesla's experiments, and Camp Hero is sort of a bad kind of weird connotation anyway. People don't really know what it is, and people try to understand what it is. There's two 16 millimeter aircraft gun batteries. There's machine gun batteries, all for protection during World War II. And underneath, they put these huge tunnels where they kept the ammunition.
Mhm.
But these two guys ended up in a terrible, terrible rainstorm, knowing that some of the files for some of this triangulation to try to shoot down airplanes was in the files in the basement. But a terrible, terrible rainstorm, which is not made up, of course. And the basement starts to get flooded. They escape through a manhole with their lives, losing all the documentation. Gone forever. That was where the book ends.
Ah, so it doesn't have a happy ending, huh?
No happy ending, no. But
So,
it's a journey around Long Island, basically.
I understand that the journalist was an easy character for you, right? Because you could pretty much
Right,
base it on
correct,
you.
right.
What about the other characters?
Well, the police officer also, he's not based on anybody, but my uncle was a police officer, so I have a little knowledge
Mhm.
of police department, so I sort of, it's quasi based on him, but not actually based on him.
So that's probably one of the transitions you had to make as a writer from journalism to novels because it's creating characters.
Right.
Did you find that easy, hard?
That was
It
hard.
developed?
That was hard, and the trying to find out background information and researching things of places and people. That's also hard. Time
Mhm.
consuming, difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, the advice I usually give is that, because I do have in the past, haven't done one recently, I do workshops for kids about writing. And they always ask, where do your characters come from? Are they real people and whatnot? And I said, sometimes they're real people, but if you want to create a character, just take a few celebrities and just pull the characteristics you like because
Right.
you know about these people or people in your life. And you don't have to make it that person, but you're going to pull characteristics. And I always tell them, if you write a book and the people don't like your characters, they're not going to like your book. Characters are very important.
Probably the hardest part of writing the
Yeah, I
book.
think so too. Setting, make the setting a character,
Right.
make that setting, and you've obviously, Brooklyn
Right.
in both your books, you're able to do that. The plot is the plot. The plot is the puzzle that the characters are trying to solve.
Right.
They always go through, is it plot driven or is it character driven? It's kind of both.
This is definitely both.
Yeah.
Definitely both. Yeah.
I mean, I see it because I write mystery stories. So people say, I just let the book develop. I can't do that, really. I have to have a construct and an outline. I have to know that everything ties up at the end. I can't have a clue hanging out here that doesn't mean
Yeah,
anything.
it was hard to end. The ending is sort of a takeoff on one of Milton DeMille's stories about 9/11.
Oh,
He's
Nelson DeMille,
yeah,
yeah.
in one of the end of his stories.
Nightfall.
What's that?
Nightfall.
Right,
That was a
Nightfall.
great book.
Right. So he sort of ends it like it all goes poof. So I figured that's a pretty neat way to end things. So maybe I could have my own
Yeah, because many things in life do end that way.
right.
Poof.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So, that's the writing of the book, and as you said, then you need the computer skills. And the computer skills, if you do it often enough, they come. Because I was never a person who loved computers, but as a teacher, you had to learn, you had to put your grades on, you had to put the attendance on, and then if you wanted to make a lesson plan, blah, blah, blah. So I learned when I was still teaching, and then my son is in the field, so, he taught me a few things, and I found PowerPoint very, because I do lectures, that was.
I taught a publishing class, a
Oh,
computerized
there you go.
publishing class
There you
in
go.
adult education.
Mhm.
That's where some of that
Are you still doing that?
two-dimensional, yeah,
Yeah, so that's, and
right.
then the computer, I always say to budding authors, make the computer your best friend, because that's where you're gonna do a lot of your research. And also, if you're teaching a self-publishing class, just Google self-publishing, and my God, the amount of material that comes up, and helpful material, so.
But not everybody can upload and transform a Word document or a written computer document into a
Into a
Kindle or
PDF?
an Amazon book.
Oh, no, you have to have skill there. I have a graphic designer who helps me with my book. I've done the last 4 books on KDP, and I have a graphic designer, but she's also my illustrator. See, with kids' books, even though I write for like middle grade, I don't write for little kids. You have to put illustrations in. You just have to. It makes for a better book.
Right.
So, and also she did my covers, so I let her do that. But then I've become very, good with it. I know it has to be done. I know you have to do the copyright page, but KDP will give you a template for almost anything.
Right, and I have no trouble getting things uploaded to the computer, and laying out things for the book, the copyright page and introduction page. And instead of illustrations, I rely on photography,
Yes,
because
yeah.
I'm fairly good with photography. So I use that rather than a hand-drawn thing.
Sure, sure,
that
yeah,
works for me.
and the quality of the programs on the computers have become so good in giving you, if you take a picture, preserving the quality of that picture, and I find that very helpful. So, and then we get to marketing, and marketing there's so many ways you can market. I mean, they always say start local. So you worked for newspapers, so hey, our journalist just wrote a book. So you get a little article in your paper, your local paper.
Well, I got an article, I got into Newsday that way, and then I had two things published in Newsday. Two stories, one about my dog, which is in the dog in Brooklyn, and one was about my grandmother's chicken soup. That was pretty recent, but in Newsday, but anyway.
Yeah, well, that's good. Those are always good. And then there's been an absolute explosion of indie bookstores on Long Island. And if you go on their website, just scroll down to the bottom, and they'll give you a template that you can fill out, an application to get your book in the bookstore. Of course, you have to pay, but it's worth it. It's really worth it because it's local. And then you try to do a little book talk there.
Well, yeah, I try to do book talks with community groups in South Holton, and then the bookstores are not that great for actually, they get your name out there, but they don't really get your book in front of people. They sort of put it like in the library.
Well, yeah, but if you fill this out and you pay them their $25 to $50, they supposedly are featuring it in their newsletter, and they have a special table for it. I find that with marketing, you get what you pay for. Also, enter it in contests. There's a lot of different contests out there. Just Google book contests. So you enter contests. There's also some services that will write reviews for you, because they tell you that on Amazon.
It's Goodreads also.
Yeah, well, they're connected,
Right.
and they want you to have reviews. So,
Right.
I mean, if you want a Kirkus review, you're gonna pay $500 for it. I won't do that. I'll go for the cheaper ones, but and then get your friends to write reviews and get those reviews on Amazon. And so it's reviews, contests, local papers, even your local library. Your local library should give you at least one shot at a book talk. But the
I've
problem
done
with
local library, I've done church groups.
yeah, that's good.
Do we have 3 or 4 libraries out east? I think I've hit them all. Yeah, and then one of my best spots is the local drugstore has a shelf of local books, and the books all end up facing you. Covers
That's
can be
right,
seen.
instead of the spine, which
Right,
shows nothing.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the other thing you learn about is you better make your spine
Right.
wide enough, because you have very narrow books, it's
Right.
hard to get the spine to show. Yes, so there's all those things. The problem is, I find with events that you do, like if you do a book launch, it's getting people to come. It's getting an audience. And so then you start with a newsletter and a website. And it's this never-ending
Right.
search for just getting a following.
Right. I've worked with the local libraries to do book fairs. So you get 4 or 5 local authors, and people come, and your book and their books, and that's pretty successful.
You know what I find where I have good sales? The Christmas fairs in churches. I find those to be very, very, very good.
I didn't realize you could do books at the Christmas fair, because it seemed to be more like crafty things.
Well,
I'm gonna start doing that.
I had to convince some of the people who ran fairs. They said, well, it's a book. And I'll say, what about a book is not a craft?
Right.
You're using raw material to create something original.
Right.
And so I convinced them.
Yeah, it works, yeah.
Yeah. But I find the marketing is a full-time job. The writing's fun to a certain extent. The publishing is doable. And the marketing is
Marketing
just
is
a
the hard,
lot of work.
probably harder than writing the book.
Right, and there's a million, I won't say a million, but there's a lot of places where they will write articles about how to market. If you join Independent Book Publishers Association, IBPA, just Google IBPA. And it's over $100 a year, but not excessively expensive.
Okay.
You get a journal, and they have a lot of articles about marketing, and they also offer services at discount prices. So, like for instance, you could publish your book and you can put it on Amazon, but then you need a distributor.
Right.
And the distributor is like Ingram, Baker and Taylor.
Right.
But I'm talking too much, and we have about a minute left, and I would like you to use that minute to say anything you want about your book, writing, whatever.
I've had quotes from writers that writing is very, very difficult, and it truly is. And anybody who wants to write should do it not just to market and not to sell, because they want to do it. It's hard to sell a book, especially if you're not already famous, but just write, and should write every day. Whatever you write, just write something every day, and that would be my biggest plus to anybody who would like to write. Just write, whatever it is, and eventually with some more creativity will come out of that.
And also write what you know.
Absolutely, that you have to write what you know. You
Yeah.
can't write what you don't know about.
Well, some people, I mean, you can write a novel and it can be about, the subject can be something you don't know about, but your novel is about something that you researched.
Right.
And even if you're just writing about your childhood, for God's
Even
sake.
you just wrote what happened around today. What happened to you in the morning? You write in the morning. What did I do in the last 5 minutes? And then it will grow from there. It will
Absolutely
grow.
will. That's the whole thing about journal writing. Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Joel.
It's a pleasure. I think I learned a lot today. I don't know if anybody else learned, but I did.
I'm glad. I'm very glad. So, when you write this second book, you have to be back on the show.
Okay, absolutely.
And you're going to tell us all the things you learned about marketing.
I appreciate you having me. Very nice to be here.
Thank you so much.
You.
Take care.
Thank you.